The mining ship Razor's Edge cut through the silence of deep space, drifting over a dead world so old its name was lost to time. Known only as Gravemine 9, it was a rogue rock orbiting a dying star at the edge of the galaxy. No trade routes passed near it. No star charts marked it. But to the old ones, the storytellers and lunatics, it was a grave. A myth. A warning. Captain Solon didn't believe in warnings. "Begin excavation scans," he ordered, sipping synthetic coffee. "Let's find out if this ghost rock is worth the fuel we burned getting here." Below them, Gravemine 9's surface was dry, cracked, and inert. But the scans showed something impossible. Not mineral veins. Not water. Architecture. Gigantic geometric forms were buried deep beneath the crust. Thousands of meters across. Too uniform to be natural. Too massive to be ignored. "Captain," the science officer muttered, her voice strained. "These readings, these structures." "I know. Send down the drones. Let's wake up the past." They deployed the first drill unit within the hour. It burned through layers of dust and stone until it hit something hard, black metal, or something like it. A smooth, seamless surface beneath miles of earth. The drone tapped it. And something tapped back. At first, they thought it was malfunction. Feedback noise. Then the temperature on the ship dropped by 5 degrees. Then the whispering began. It was faint, in the combs. Not words. Just noise, like breathing, or wind through shattered glass. Crew dismissed it, but systems began glitching, lights flickered, guidance systems failed, navimaps rewrote themselves. "We've unearthed something intelligent," the science officer said, pale. Or angry. "No one said this was haunted," Solon muttered. "Just a dead world." But dead things didn't whisper. And they didn't reach up. The first casualty came the next night. A drone operator went missing. His console showed him walking into the airlock, eyes wide, mouth whispering back at the static. He stepped out into the void without a suit. And smiled before his lungs froze. Meanwhile, other ships arrived. A Varkari scout ship appeared in orbit, then a Thalos salvage barge, and within days, half a dozen vessels had gathered above Gravemine 9. They hadn't come for peace. Everyone had heard. The myth was real. The prize below the crust of this grave world was ancient and possibly alive. Captain Solon watched them on the tactical screen. The sky above the grave was no longer quiet. Fighters zipped between massive frigates, energy weapons warming. "Weapons hot?" he asked. "Hot and waiting," his weapons officer replied. Then the surface broke. It didn't rise. It unfolded. A massive circular section of Gravemine 9's crust cracked, rotated, and pulled itself apart like a blooming flower of stone. Beneath it was no facility. No vault. It was a chamber. And something within it was moving. At first, all they saw was light. Then limbs. Then eyes. It had no name. Not anymore. Whatever it had once been, weapon, god, machine, was long buried under a million years of rage. And now, it was awake. The Varkari fired first, a barrage of plasma slamming into the rising shape. It didn't stagger. It screamed. And that scream wasn't sound. It was gravity. Ships twisted midair, metal bending. The Thalos barge imploded, crushed into itself like a can under a boot. Then the real battle began. Captain Solon's ship turned, evading a barrage of railgun fire from a rival fleet, even as the awakening entity began tearing through the sky. It moved without propulsion, warping space around it. Beams of pure energy lanced through battleships like needles through silk. "We're outgunned," someone yelled. "We're outclassed," Solon corrected grimly. The entity lashed out with tendrils of light, dragging ships out of formation and into the ground, smashing them like flies. One Thalos cruiser tried to escape, its engines overloaded and exploded mid-jump. And all the while, the whispers grew louder. "Join. Remember. Burn. What does it want? The science officer screamed, clutching her headset. It's not attacking randomly, it's judging us. No, Solon realized. It's continuing a war we never knew about. On Gravemind 9, during an age before history, a species must have created this thing as a weapon, a guardian, a last resort. When their world fell, they buried it. Sealed it. And now, we had become the enemy. Solon made a choice. He transmitted to the remaining ships, ceasefire. Now. Power down weapons. It's reacting to aggression. Some captains ignored him. Others hesitated. A Phalos fighter fired a last missile. The entity turned. Solon watched as the fighter evaporated, not exploded, but ceased to exist. And still, the entity climbed higher, spreading wings of fire across the void. But then, it stopped. Solon's ship powered down completely. Lights off. Weapons offline. No signals. Just silence. And in that silence, the whispers became clear. This was not your grave, but it can be. The entity hovered, massive and watching. Then, without a sound, it folded space and vanished, pulled back into the wound of Gravemind 9, which sealed behind it like it had never opened. The battle was over. What remained of the fleets limped away. Some in silence. Some in terror. None victorious. Later, in reports no one would ever publish, Captain Solon wrote. We stood above a grave, thinking it was ours to loot. But that wasn't a grave. It was a prison. And the myth inside still dreams of war. The moon had no name. Only a code in forgotten archives, Zone 9C restricted. Centuries had passed since anyone dared go near it. A blackened crater of rock orbiting a blue gas giant at the edge of neutral space. To Commander Reese and the UHS Valiant, it was just another recon mission. Another dead rock, grunted his pilot, Juno, as they came into orbit. Can't believe we're wasting fuel on a ghost story. Reese said nothing. His orders were classified. But he'd seen the ancient data burst that started all this. A signal pulsed from the moon 3 days ago, the exact same frequency used during the First Galactic War, 200 years ago. A war that nearly broke the galaxy in half. And a signal thought to be lost forever. The Valiant deployed atmospheric probes. The surface was barren, but deep scans revealed a large impact crater miles wide lined with alloy not found anywhere else. In the crater's center was a structure, domed, jagged, and humming faintly. A tomb. Sir, said the science officer, eyes wide, those alloys match pre-collapse technology. We're talking pre-council. This could be a relic from the First War. Reese stood in silence, gazing at the crater. Or worse, he whispered. Hours later, before they could even prep a drop team, alarms screamed. A fleet had arrived. Not human. Thalkar. Snakes of deep void, the Thalkar were humanity's enemies in the First Galactic War and rivals ever since. Their lead ship, Draktel, shadowed them in orbit. The comms lit up. This grave is ours, human, their commander hissed. You would desecrate it. We will honor it with fire. The truce between humans and Thalkar had always been fragile. Now it shattered like glass. Missiles screamed through space. The Valiant's defense grid lit up as they dodged behind the moon's magnetic field, returning fire. A Thalkar escort ship exploded, hurling debris into orbit. Reese cursed under his breath, this wasn't supposed to be a war zone. This isn't about salvage, he said. They know what's down there. They remember what happened here. 200 years ago, during the bloodiest days of the First War, the Council created something to end the conflict. A superweapon. Some said it was artificial intelligence. Others said it was a being born from both science and dark myth. It was deployed only once. Afterward, all records were purged. And the site of its activation was declared a dead zone. Until now. And now, both sides had returned, with guns drawn, to finish what was started. The battle raged above the forgotten grave. Laser beams lit up the dark. Fighters weaved between warships. The Valiant took heavy hits but remained in orbit. Then the science officer screamed, "Sir, the signal's changing." Reese ran to the console. On the surface, the dome had begun to glow. And then, open. It cracked, slowly. Like an eye waking up. From beneath the soil, energy flared and something moved. "Tell me that's not power readings," whispered Juno. "It's not," Reese replied grimly. "It's a heartbeat." All comms went silent. Not jammed, suppressed. Then something rose from the crater. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't a machine. It was shaped like both, but moved like neither. Black as the void, with veins of red lightning pulsing across its hull. It hovered without thrusters. Its presence warped gravity. Ships shifted out of formation, pulled toward it. The myth was real. It had no name. The ancient records had called it only the last echo. A weapon born in despair. A consciousness that had no loyalty, only memory. And it remembered the war. The last echo turned its head, if it had one, toward the stars. Toward the fighting ships above. Then its eyes, dozens of red cracks, lit up. And it screamed. It wasn't sound. It was frequency. A pulse wave so strong that ships lost all systems. Lights died. Engines stalled. Shields dropped. And then it struck. Not with missiles. Not with beams. It reached out with tendrils of pure force and tore a Thalkar ship in half like paper. The human ships didn't fare better. A cruiser vaporized instantly. The Valiant buckled under pressure. "It's targeting everything," Juno shouted. "It doesn't see sides. Just threats." Reese's jaw tightened. Because it was made to end a war. It only knows one language: destruction. The survivors tried to flee. But space itself twisted. Jump drives failed. The sky bent around the entity like a whirlpool of light. The last echo was not just a weapon. It was a wound in time, never healed, never forgotten. Reese stared at the screen. One Thalkar vessel, the Draktel, powered down completely. No shields. No weapons. It floated still. And the echo paused. "That's it," Reese muttered. "It only attacks threats. Power down everything. Now." But Juno began. "Do it." The Valiant went dark. For a moment, only stars moved. Then the echo stopped. It floated, massive and still, above the moon. And, for the first time, they heard a voice, not in audio, but in thought. "You return. But your war is over. Let me rest. Or I will finish what I began." Then it descended. Back into the crater. The dome reformed around it. The light vanished. The heartbeat ceased. Silence. The Thalkar ship turned without another word. So did Reese. Nothing was said in the return trip. Nothing had to be. They had stood above a forgotten grave. Had fought where no war should ever be reignited. And found that the myth was not only real. It was watching. Waiting for the galaxy to forget again. The coordinates weren't supposed to exist. They came from a rogue data fragment, decrypted from a dying AI core found in the ruins of a derelict Arkship. Every sane historian called it fiction, the lost ring of the core, a myth passed down by spacers drunk on void dreams. But Dr. Lyra Halden was insane. She was obsessed. And now, standing on the deck of the Prospector's Run, orbiting the blackened star at the heart of the galaxy, she was staring at the impossible. "There it is," she whispered. Suspended above a scorched world hung a colossal stone ring, dozens of kilometers wide, carved with ancient glyphs and dark metallic plating fused into its structure. It wasn't orbiting. It was anchored in space, like a nailed-down god. Her crew of mercenaries stood silent. Not out of awe, out of instinctive dread. "This isn't a ruin," muttered Jax, the ship's ex-marine gunner. "It's a coffin." They launched drones. The ring reacted almost immediately. No attacks. No force fields. Just activation. As the drones approached, the glyphs glowed dull red. A vibration started deep and bone-hollowing, like the groan of an ancient door being forced open after millennia of silence. The structure began to unfold. Sections rotated. Plates pulled apart. Something was coming out. Something shaped like a humanoid, but far too large, far too symmetrical, and far too alive. "It's a sentinel," Lyra breathed. "One of the 12. The last one. It's been waiting." Jax armed the ship. "Lyra, we didn't come to wake up a nightmare. You said this was salvage." "It is. That sentinel is from before the galactic collapse. It's pre-council tech. Possibly pre-organic. We could study it." Her comms buzzed. A new ship had just jumped in. Then another. And another. In minutes, 6 vessels had appeared: scavenger fleets, war barges, corporate warships, all drawn to the site by leaked data or intercepted coordinates. And they all had the same goal: claim the myth. The shooting started before the Sentinel fully emerged. The scavenger ship Black Morrow fired a warning shot near the ring, then one directly into the Prospector's Run's shields. Jax retaliated, and within seconds, the sky above the grave became a battlefield. Beams lanced through space. Drones exploded in rapid flashes. One barge tried to dock with the ring, it vanished into a burst of magnetic energy. No debris. Just gone. Lyra screamed over the comms. "Stop firing. It's a sentinel." "It's too late." The sentinel woke up. Its eyes lit first 3 vertical slits of blue fire. Then it moved. It didn't launch countermeasures or deploy weapons, it was the weapon. Each gesture unleashed waves of gravitational force. One scavenger frigate collapsed in on itself. Another was torn into 3 perfect, floating pieces. It didn't distinguish between attackers and observers. All were judged. All were threats. Lyra watched in horror as her crew scrambled for control. "We have to shut it down," she yelled. "It's not a machine we can just unplug." Jax snapped. But Lyra was already sprinting toward the artifact core chamber, where the decrypted fragment had first triggered the Sentinel's awakening. Inside, the console was glowing. Not just interface lights, glyphs were forming midair, rearranging themselves, communicating. The Sentinel wasn't just reacting. It was broadcasting. Lyra read what little she could. "You returned. You fight amongst the graves of your makers. You are not worthy. The war is not over." Outside, the Sentinel ascended. Wings unfolded, metal and light, like solar sails laced with lightning. Its voice shook space, not in sound waves, but through electromagnetic pulse. Ships across all sides lost power. Communications failed. One vessel crashed into another in silence. It wasn't attacking blindly. It was fulfilling a program. A final order from long-dead creators. If war begins again, erase everything. Lyra, trembling, patched a direct link from the console to the Sentinel's frequency. She spoke, hoping it could hear her. "We're not your enemies. We don't know your war. We're not your creators. They're gone. You don't have to fight anymore." A pause. Then, it answered. "They said the same. The last time. And they lied. Show me you are different." She froze. "How?" Outside, one last warship attempted to destroy the Sentinel with a massive plasma cannon. Before it fired, the Sentinel reached forward and crushed it mid-space. That was the final warning. Lyra returned to the bridge. "Power everything down. No weapons. No shields. Full surrender." Jack stared. "That's suicide." "It's proof." that were not continuing their war. They did it. And miraculously, the Sentinel stopped. One by one, the other surviving ships saw the change. The Sentinel hovered in silence above the ring. Glyphs along its limbs glowed a cool blue now, instead of red. And then, it descended back toward the structure, folding its arms. The ring closed around it like a mechanical tomb. Before it disappeared, the Sentinel broadcasted one final message. The grave remains. Return with war in your hearts. And I shall return with fire in mine. The sky cleared. Those who survived never spoke of the Sentinel publicly. The footage was wiped. Official reports claimed an accident. A system anomaly. But they remembered. Lyra archived her data in a sealed file marked Echo Shield Protocol. Because the myth had been real. And it wasn't sleeping. It was waiting.